So most of you will have login access. So when you navigate to that SolvSafety icon, you'll come to this home page where those other general users will see these two buttons, and we call this the portal page. They'll be able to come in and submit an incident or a corrective action. Before I go into the modules, we're going to step through the home page first. The session is a lot of information to take in, so whatever you don't take away today, please don't stress. We have a host of resources available where we'll touch on where to find those in the session. So we're going to go through the home page and these different icons, and then we'll step through the different modules. We'll go through the incident module and the summary page in a little bit more depth, and then we'll jump into corrective actions and inspections. So we'll show you what those forms look like. You'll see that the summary page, functionality and forms all have a very similar look and feel. So we won't go into those as much, and then we will take a peek at our risk assessment module before finishing off on the home page menu. So at the moment we're at home, we're looking at my alerts. So I'm logged into the system as myself, Courtney Giblett, and I'm looking at alerts assigned to me. Those alerts may be due or overdue, and they'll be red. If I had some alerts that were orange, that means that they're due within the next 3 days. So I can see what's coming up for me this week. When we're referring to alerts in the system, we're referring to forms that might be required for completion. So a management review, for example, or it might be an action that's been created, perhaps from the corrective actions module. Today we're just looking at all test data, so just keep that in mind. As I come to my all alerts, I can see all alerts for business units that I have access to. So when you log into the system, you're only going to see records for business units that you have access to. So for example, if I only have access to aquatics, I'm only going to see incidents, corrective actions and inspections and so forth reported at aquatics. Whereas if I have access to an entire department, I'll see all of those records allocated to business units below that department. So my all alerts is showing me all alerts across all business units that I have access to, so I can see what's coming up perhaps for my team. I've got a search bar on the right hand side, so I can see what's coming up for Corinne. She's got a few overdue alerts there, so I could even export that and send that off to Corinne. You can also see we've got that orange traffic light button system. So those alerts are due within 3 days. Who's the owner? Who's the responsible person for completing this alert? And that might be a form that's required for completion or an action. Coming across to our incidents view, we've got a high-level dashboard at the top, which is giving me some statistics. Again, this is for business units that I have access to. So I can see how many new incidents have been reported this month, how many are currently open, how many actions have been created from the incident module and of those that are currently open, and how many are overdue. As I hover my mouse over the graph, I can see how many incidents are open and closed for that particular month. Further down, we have a table of data. So our progress also has a traffic light button system that reflects the incident progress. So which form is required for completion, or where is that incident up to? So red means that form 2, so the incident report and action form is required for completion. Orange means that forms 3 or more are required for completion, so that may be the management review form or the WHS review form. So we're going to have a look at those shortly. If the traffic light button is green, it means all forms are complete, and you can see some of these actually have an exclamation mark within the traffic light button, and that means that there's actions outstanding against this particular incident. Lastly, if that traffic light button is yellow, it means there's approvals outstanding. So we can't close off any of these incidents until all forms, actions and approvals are complete. So my home page is only showing me closed records. Open records. As soon as it's closed, it will disappear from the home page and be hiding in the relevant register, which we'll look at later. Coming along, we have our SolvSafety ID. So this is purely a unique reference, particularly handy when emailing information in and out of the system. And you'll notice that it's a hyperlink. So when I click on this particular ID, it's going to take me to the summary page of the record where I can go in and make updates. I have my date of the incident, the risk if that's been allocated, the incident type, the business unit or reporting structure that the incident was reported at, and a brief description. So I've got those high-level details and visibility for when I first come into the system. You'll notice as I was clicking on those headings, it's actually sorting them. And then up the top there, you still have your search and export option. Coming along to corrective actions, you can see we've got that similar dashboard across the top and those headings are within that table. And you'll see the same for our inspections. Within the inspections module, I think we have about 5, so all of those will sit in here. Keeping in mind that those are only open inspections. As soon as they're closed off, they'll be sitting in the relevant register. So I've just got someone on unmute, so if they can mute themselves, thank you. And Annette, I will hand back to you to introduce incidents.
Thanks, Connie. Okay, so the incidents module that we're about to go through will be our most frequently used module. So we have around about 200 incidents reported per year. And within this module for each incident, there's 3 forms that will be used in the system. And the process flow for how we will do this in the system is almost the same as how we do it now. So the first form that you will complete or any team member has access to complete is an incident alert. And then that is currently electronic for us now. The next stage of that, that'll be allocated to the person's team leader by whoever is filling out the form. So there's an automatic workflow that will then go through to the team leader who that person has selected. The team leader fills out their section and then the workflow then goes on to the manager for management review. So a very similar process to how we are currently operating. So as of the 1st of July, the icon to report incidents will be removed from the desktop and it will be replaced with the SolvSafety icon. If you're a standard access user, which you are because you're in this training, you will go through this portal page. If you're not a standard user, you're a general access person reporting an incident, you'll just go through an all portal page that will say report an incident or a corrective action, and they'll be able to report an incident in that way. So the process flow is the same, it's just being replaced by this online module. Thanks, Connie.
So to raise a new incident, we're going to come to our add menu and we're going to come down to add an incident. And that's going to bring me up my incident alert form. So just like a piece of paper, we're going to complete the relevant fields. So the date and time of the incident, which might be different to the date and time it was reported. So I can come down and select today. Depending on the incident type, will determine what questions I'm required to answer. So at the moment, you can see I've got my witnesses, attachments, and reporting details. When I come up and select no injury or near miss, you can see I'm prompted to come in and complete some person affected details. Whereas if I come down and select customer contractor, the system's asking me to enter information relating to the customer or contractor. So today we're going to enter an employee with injury. You'll notice some of those fields have a red asterisk mark next to them. So these are mandatory and required to be completed in order to save and submit this incident alert. I try and hit save and finish without completing those mandatory fields, the system's going to go back and remind me to complete those. So I'm just going to pop in a test today. Here we have our business unit. So this will determine who has visibility over that record as well. So I can use that arrow to expand and drill down on the different business units. Alternatively, if you know the name of the business unit, you can simply start typing that in and you can see it's searched and shortlisted it for me. Coming down to our specific location. And then we've got the option to pop in some more details here as well. Coming down, we have our person affected. So who was the affected person? So we've got a list of people to choose from here. I'm going to enter test today and their occupation. Further down, we have our injury details. So who was the injured person? This information will carry across to Solv Injury, the injury management team to manage. My hands are cold, so my typing's shocking today. Now we've got our injury treatment type. And further down we have witnesses. So you'll notice we've got our add another record. So here we've got the option to enter more than one witnesses. I always try and think of a celebrity or a character in here. So if I select add another record, I can enter one or more witness details there. Coming down, we have our attachments. So you have the option to upload any photos and documents that might be relevant to the particular incident. So if you're submitting this incident alert on your mobile phone, you can actually navigate to your camera and take a photo and upload it. Or if you're on an iPad and you want to navigate to your photo library, you can upload from there as well. Coming down, we have our reporting details. So who reported the incident, which may be different to the person completing this actual alert form. We're going to pop in their phone number here. And lastly, who is the responsible team leader or supervisor? So they'll be responsible for coming in and reviewing the information entered and completing the incident report and action form, which we'll look at shortly. So once we've completed all of this information, we'll come down and hit save and finish, and a few things will happen here. The email will go off to the relevant people to say that an incident alert has been reported. So if you have business unit access to aquatics and you have incident alert ticked on under your user settings, you'll receive an email. And that email notification will look similar to this. It's going to have those high-level incident details there and a PDF copy of that incident alert form. You'll also see a login button, so you can select login, and that will take you into the system where you can view more information about that particular incident. A second email will go off to that team leader that we chose from that drop down, so that last field we were looking at. That particular person will receive an email looking similar to the one we just looked at, and they're going to receive an email to say they're required to complete this incident report and action form. So in this case, it's CBC test. So if you're that person, you can click on a link in the email and it's going to bring you straight to this incident report and action form. Alternatively, you can log into the system and click on that red button on the summary page like I just did so. So we're now looking at the incident report and action form. You'll notice some of the information has been pre-populated from that incident alert. So I don't have to come in and enter the same information twice. but I can come in and make changes or updates where required. Further down the page, we have our further information section. So because this particular incident involved an injury, I'm prompted to enter some injury information. So parts of the body affected. I can select one or more. So I can scroll down this list and simply tick those on. Nature of injury or illness. So you've got a list here to choose from as well. Mechanism. So we're going to say it was a fall on the same level. And the agency. Depending on how you answer certain questions, you may see some other fields display. Making sure we're completing those fields with that red asterisk mark next to them. Coming down to our contributing factors, I've got that add another record, so I can select one or multiple contributing factors using that arrow to expand to the lowest level. Alternatively, you can also search our contributing factors list as well. Here we have our interactive risk matrix. So by looking at the likelihood and consequence, you can select the relevant rating. Coming down the page, we have our actions. So if there's an action that has come out of this particular incident, you can assign that to another user within the system. So we're going to give this action a title. So what action is required? When is it required to be completed by? So I can use these arrows to move through the different months. Who's responsible for completing this action? Who's the action owner? I've also got the option to pop in any actions that might have already been completed. I can enter in a reason, and then I can choose a hierarchy of control. When I hit save, for this particular form, the action owner, so our Canterbury Bankstown Council test, will receive an email to say that they're required to complete this action. So they'll see those action details and they can click on a link to take them to the action where they can update it. So it acts as a reminder as well. Got our witnesses, our attachments, and lastly our reporting details. So who completed the incident report? And who is the manager to approve? So the person that we choose from this drop down will receive an email to say that they're required to complete the management review form, which we'll have a look at. You'll notice as we've been completing these forms, some of these buttons have been turning red and changing colour. So green is good. Green means that the form has been complete. So we just completed that incident report and action form. And then we've chosen someone to complete the management review. So we can see this button is now red and it's required to be completed by this person that we've chosen. On the right hand side, I've also got my alerts going off. So that's reminding me what's required. We've also added an action, so that's outstanding and therefore turning red. So we'll jump into the management review. Again, that information is pre-populated from the previous form, but we can come in and make changes as required. So reviewing that information, we'll come down the page. We've got our further information, our contributing factors, that risk assessment. We've got the option to add more actions, attachments, and then lastly, our incident review. Depending on how I answer some of these questions may determine whether a major investigation is required. So when I select yes for these, you'll see I've got some red text down the bottom here telling me that a major investigation will need to be completed. For this particular example, we're going to say no. So no, it wasn't a serious injury or illness. And therefore a major investigation is not required, and it's just going to go to a WHS review. So these workflows are configured within the system. This hyperlink will take you to a web page where you can see that list of WHS BPs. So you can choose the relevant person to carry out that WHS review. So this person will now receive an email to say they're required to complete that WHS review. So if you're that person, you'll receive the email, which you can click a link, or you can navigate to the summary page and click on this red button. So we'll just have a peek at the WHS review form, and then we'll loop back to the summary page. So we've got all of our information entered, which can be reviewed and updated as required. So we'll cancel out of this and come back to our summary page. So we've touched on the incident process. So green is good, green means the form's been complete. Red is outstanding, and it's the next form that's required to be completed within the process. And we can't close off this particular incident until all forms, actions, and approvals, if required, are complete. At the top here, I've got some high-level incident details. I can see the date of the incident, that unique SolvSafety ID reference. I can see whether the incident is open or closed and the business unit that it was reported at. On the right-hand side, I have my add information menu. So if you need to make an update or a change, but you're not sure where to find it, start with your add information menu, as it will generally be hiding in here. So here I can come in and edit one of those forms that have been completed, or I can complete the next form in the incident process. I've got the option to upload some further photos or documents. I can send an email out of the system. So if I'd like to email one of those completed forms, I can do so. I can add notes. So maybe I've called the worker, left a message, or I've sent an email. I can come in and add some additional actions, and then you've got that photo option there as well. We can see we've got those alerts going off here, so they'll start to appear within 3 days of when they're required to be complete. So they may be forms, or they may be actions, depending on their due date. Further down, any short and sharp update notes, they could be added here. They'll be sitting in our notes tab, which we'll look at shortly. This particular incident involved an injury to an employee. So we've got some injury details populating here. So we can see the injured worker's name and a brief description there as well. Otherwise, that would remain blank. Within the form details section, I can see which forms have been completed, by who and when, if they've been updated and by who and when they were updated. And I can also see who is responsible for completing each form. So we refer to those as form owners within SolvSafety. So at the moment, Canterbury Bankstown Council is the responsible person for completing that WHS review. Further down, we have our photo slider. So any photos uploaded to the incident will display here. I can come in and add more if required. And then lastly, I have my history. So any high level changes made to the record, so they might be forms that have been completed, forms reassigned to users and so forth. These changes are date and time stamped, and I can see who made the change. So this view is all from the summary page tab. If I come down to my actions, I can see all actions created within this individual incident. By clicking on that arrow, it's going to expand and I can see more details about the action. I can come in and edit it by clicking on the pen icon. I can mark it as complete. I've also got the option to add more actions. I can search and I can export, so similar to the home page as well. Our attachments tab will display all photos and documents uploaded to this particular incident, which I can search, export and add. And lastly, I have my notes. So that short, sharp update note I added on the summary page earlier, I can see those details here. I've also got a copy of the original incident alert email that was sent out when this incident was first added to the system. So I've got a copy of that here. And then you've got the option to add notes as you go. So that's a high level overview of the incident process and the summary page. So I'll hand back to Annette, who will step us through corrective actions.
Thanks, Courtney. So the corrective action module, so we've looked at one module, we're about to step into another module now. The corrective action module, again, is a very similar process to our current practices at council. So we already have an online corrective action database where we have an icon on the desktop and we go in to report a corrective action that is needed. So a very similar process to this, except everyone will click on that one icon. It's the SolvSafety icon that everyone will click on and they will go in to report a corrective action. Where general users, so team members, will be able to go into that icon and complete form number 1. They won't see the whole portal page that you will see as a standard access user. So for you to complete a corrective action, similar to the incident module, you'll go into add and you'll go add a corrective action. So again, there are 2 forms, one to complete what's the issue, and the second is the review form to look at the actions that are needed to be taken. So with around 300 corrective actions being raised in our system, there were a number of reasons why we have a separate corrective action module and why it's different from the very simple actions that can be raised in incidents. We had the philosophy that every incident needs an action associated with it, but sometimes those actions are very, very minor actions. For example, to talk to the staff member or the team to raise awareness around the issue. And so the contributing factor or cause of the incident is quite apparent. But when it's not apparent or it needs further action, that's when we would raise a corrective action, because we need to start to assess the contributing factors that resulted in something. The other reason why this module would be used is to raise corrective actions from inspections, risk assessments, identified issues, or potentially a customer complaint related to safety. We've separated, as I said before, because we want people to think about the actions that they're raising and consider whether this corrective action is related specifically to safety and changes needed in safety, or whether it's for other factors such as building maintenance. And if it is building maintenance, then that doesn't get lodged in this system, it gets lodged in our works. And we saw that issue time and time again, which is why we configured the system the way that we did. And you'll notice when we get into inspections, it doesn't have those simple action functions because we want people to think about and consolidate the corrective actions that they're raising.
So to add a brand new corrective action, we're coming to our add, coming down to add a corrective action, and it's going to bring up my corrective action form. So you can see it's got that similar look and feel to those incident forms we were looking at. So using our date and time picker, our specific location drop-down, the responsible business unit, the category, so where did it arise from, the hazard type, you've got a list here as well. What is the issue? You have that interactive risk matrix. So we're just selecting the risk rating based on that likelihood and consequence. You've got the option to upload any photos and documents that may be relevant. Select who reported the issue and who's the responsible manager. So when I hit save and finish, the responsible manager will receive an email to say that they're required to come in and complete this action and discuss manager responsibility form. So they can click on a link in that email, or they can navigate to the summary page and click on the red button. So those details are pre-populated, but we can come in and make changes as required. And then we come down to our action and discuss section. So what actions require to be taken? When is it required to be completed? Choose your name from the drop-down list. The hierarchy of control. And then you've got the option to pop in some notes of your action progress. When you hit save and finish, if you've chosen yourself from this drop-down, you'll receive an email. And as the due date comes closer, you'll also receive a reminder as well. So our corrective actions process is just 2 forms. It's a little bit shorter than our incidents, which is nice. But you can see we've got that similar look and feel to the incident summary page. So we still have our actions, attachments, notes. We've got our add information on the right-hand side, our alerts, form details, history, and so forth. So we're not going to step through the summary page for corrective actions or inspections, because you can see they're quite similar. So I will hand back to Annette to introduce inspections.
Okay, so with inspections, this module is quite simple. We are replacing all WHS related inspection forms, and they're the inspections that we currently have on our WHS inspection schedule. So really looking at some of our main workplaces that we review and inspect on a systematic basis. So similar to the last couple of modules, you go to add an inspection and you'll see a drop-down listing of a variety of inspections. So we've configured the system so that depending on the needs of quite specialized functions, we've replicated some of the information that they need to capture in their paper-based, that they had in their paper-based inspection forms. So you'll see there we have an aquatics workplace inspection, a children's services inspection, a fleet workshop inspection, a general workplace inspection, and an operational inspection checklist, which is combining a couple of the WHS-based operational inspection forms. Now, these are the forms that were currently listed in our WHS inspection procedure. So there is no change to the process here. It is just moving these forms online. As I said earlier, you can access the online form either via mobile devices such as your phone or an iPad. For a better experience, an iPad does work better. And these workplace inspections do require that generally that 3-party inspection process. So a WHS representative, a management representative, and team members as well. So amongst that group, as long as one person has that a device to be able to do the inspections can be done. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks. So coming back to our inspections, so we're just going to have a peek at what those look like. Sorry, we've gone on unmute again. Let's see how we go. So let's just have a peek at children's services. So we'll just have hopefully they look very familiar. So we've got our high level inspection details at the top here. So selecting the inspection date, who's completed the form, the business unit, the location, the scope. So we've got those different people for the inspection team. And then our inspection is divided into different sections with the relevant questions displayed below. So like Annette said, this is great on an iPad. You're just selecting yes, no, or not applicable. Depending on how you answer some questions, you may be prompted to come in and enter some notes. So that was children's services. Have a look at the general, and then we'll jump into the risk assessment module, which is our last module before we go through the home page. So you can see we've got those inspection details, the inspection team, and then we've got all of our different sections and questions below. Over to you, Annette.
Okay, so we've gone through 3 different modules now, and we're about to do our last one. So we've gone through the incident reporting, corrective actions, inspections, and now the risk assessment module that we're about to go through has a bit of a different look and feel about it because it's actually a register. So with the last 3 modules, you've gone to add, and you've been able to add an inspection, a corrective action, or an incident. This register requires you to go to the registers tab, and you can see a series of registers there that Courtney will take you through at the end of the session. But we're going to go down to the risk assessment register. So the reason that we've chosen to put this in a register format is so that you can see version history of previously completed risk assessments. So we generate around 60 new risk assessments a year, and we do around 180 risk assessment reviews. We are consolidating that process as we work with units to try and refine their risk assessments and make it more meaningful for the people who are using the risk assessments. So what we will be doing is moving forward, from the 1st of July, the WHS risk assessment form will be made obsolete, and so will the review form. So as of the 1st of July, all new risk assessments will be entered into this module. And when a risk assessment becomes due for review, it will then be entered into the system as part of that review. So what that allows us to do, every risk assessment has a review date of at least 2 years. And so over the next 2 years, we will have all of our risk assessments consolidated in this one system. We're not able to import data into the system because our risk assessments are generally done on a Word document, and then they're scanned and saved into the system. So this will allow us to transition all risk assessments over to the system in the next 2 years. Thanks, Connie.
Great. So we've navigated to registers, we've come down to risk assessment register, and it's going to bring me to my register view. So currently I can see all risk assessments completed at all business units. So it's slightly different to the other modules. It's not restricted just to my business unit. It will display all. Let's say you just want to look at risks at your business unit. So let's say I'm aquatics. I can just start typing in aquatics and it's going to show me those risks reported at aquatics. Along the headings here, so we've got our risk ID. So similar to the home page, we've got that unique SolvSafety ID for reference. When I click on that ID, it's going to take me into the summary page of that risk record. Coming along, we've got our risk title. We can see the existing controls, the location or locations that the risk is allocated against, when the last review was complete, and when the next review is coming up, and whether this particular risk is open or closed. To add a brand new risk, we're going to come up and select Add, and it's going to bring up my risk assessment form. So risk assessment date, we're going to come down and select today. Version number, so if you're unsure, you might be able to see this little question mark on the right-hand side of the field, and that's going to give us a little bit more information. So this is our first risk assessment, so it's version 1. Any reviews moving forward will be the next numerical number, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. What unit or units is this risk at? So we can select a few there. The title. What's the activity or the task being assessed? The description of the task. Your risk assessor, team members, the HSR committee member. So we can see this one's required to be complete, although you should hopefully be completing most of those fields. The frequency and activity or of the activity or task, and the location. Tick on those applicable references and requirements. And then you can pop in some text there as well. Further down, you've got your emergency arrangement details and our risk assessment worksheet. For reference, you can click on this hyperlink and it's going to bring up an image of the risk matrix, which will help you allocate the different ratings. So here we're going to choose our potential risk. Residual rating. And then you've got the option to add multiple. So this will populate in the list of controls that we were looking at on that register view earlier. And it will show in our reviews controls tab within the record as well. So I'm just going to add an example. Let's add another record. Coming down, we've got our risk assessment lead authorization and when the next review is required to be completed. So if most of them are required for review within 2 years, you can actually select this year. So we're going to jump to 2022. So I can do so just by clicking on the year and then come back and select the relevant date and month. Lastly, our risk owner, which is the unit manager. And we'll come down and hit save and finish. So some of you may receive an email to say that a new risk has been added. So while this is loading, you'll see that the risk assessment summary page is quite similar to our incidents, corrective actions and inspections. So we've still got our summary, we've got our actions, our attachments, our notes. We've got our add information menu on the right-hand side. We've still got our alerts and update notes and so forth. So our risk assessment has saved. We can see those high-level risk details populating on the summary page. So I've always got that there for quick reference. So we're going to jump into the reviews and the controls tab. So these are slightly different in our risk assessment module. So over time, over the years, we're going to have our reviews. So they're all going to have those different rows. They'll populate different rows within my reviews tab, so I can go back and see previous reviews. And I also have my controls tab. So any controls added against this particular risk will also populate here over time as well. When the time does come from a review, we'll see that alert pop up, and we can come in and complete our next risk assessment review via that add information menu. So I've just hit 2 o'clock, we're on the home stretch, stay with us. We're going to go through the home page menu and finish with support. So home, that's always going to bring you home. On the right hand side, I've got my search bar, so that can search all open and closed records for all modules and business units that I've got access to. So you might search by the SolvSafety ID if you do know that. So for example, CBC incident 22, I can click on that. It's going to take me to the summary page of that record. I've also got my clock icon. So if I've been jumping in and out of records, it's going to show me those 10 most recent records that I've been working on. So we saw the add menu earlier. Each time we'd like to raise a new incident, corrective action or inspection, we can do so. Our registers, so here we navigated to that risk assessment module. And we also have some other registers here. So I'll take a peek at the incident register. So earlier I mentioned that the home page only shows open records. So currently our incidents is only showing open incidents. As soon as they're closed off, they'll disappear from the home page and they'll be sitting in the incident register. So this displays all open and closed incidents. I can filter this view by the date, by reporting structure, whether the incidents are open or closed. I can also use my search function, so by ID, reporting structure, incident type, or if I know that it involved a tree, for example, I can start searching those kind of keywords. So I've got my ID, date of incident, the risk, incident type, reporting structure and description. So very similar to the home page there. So that was our incident register. You've got the same for your corrective action and your inspection. So that will display all open and closed records for that particular module. Coming along to reports, we have a custom reporting suite available in SolvSafety. So it's called Power Reports. It allows you to build your own report. So you can simply drag and drop fields onto the report builder, which will create a table of data for you that you can turn into dashboards. You can add headings, you can add colors, you can go crazy. So over time, once we've got more data in the system, we may have some reports available in the system for you that you can click have it available for you at the click of a button, and we can also have those scheduled so they can be emailed to you on a frequent basis. So that might be weekly, monthly, and so forth. Coming along to our resources tab. So for whatever you don't take away from today's session, you have a system and module reference guide that's been collated for you by your safety team. So I highly recommend jumping in and having a look at those. There's a host of information available there. We also have our help centre. So this is managed by Solv. So this includes a host of online articles that you can search and view. So for example, let's say I want to look up power reports. I can simply type that in and click on the article. So that's going to bring me up with my power reports article, where I can view information, screenshots with step-by-step instructions. And this particular article also has a video as well, and we can see some related links there. If you don't find what you're looking for, we do have a dedicated support team available in Perth, Melbourne and Sydney. So just like an email, let them know what you need help with. Hopefully you give them a little bit more details than that. And we also encourage screenshots. That's really helpful for us to identify exactly what you're looking at. You can also email them directly at support@solv.com.au, and you'll generally hear back from someone within about 20 minutes. So hopefully they can resolve your issue, or they'll come back and ask for some more information, but they are there and happy to help. Otherwise, you also have your dedicated safety team who I've had the privilege of working with the last 6 months. So you are in very good hands with them. So that is it from me today. I hope you enjoy the system, and I will hand back to Annette. I'll stop recording and I'll turn our videos and unmute people if we like.